start. Firstly, welcome everybody. Thanks a lot for joining us today's session. My name is Nick Jeffries. I'm the Head of Change at the Youth Endowment Fund, and this is one of our virtual learning cafes delivered predominantly by Centre for Justice Innovation today, but we've got lots of presenters, really rich experience in the room and a really diverse kind of audience. So really looking at today's session. Today's session is focusing on the role of the YGS police officers and particularly their role in the context of effective diversion. For those of you registered via the Eventbrite link, you'll note that YEF and Centre for Justice Innovation co-published some guidance earlier in the year on what effective diversion looks like. That guidance made a series of recommendations, with one of those around the importance of the YGS police officer, but particularly their importance in promoting effective and consistent diversion for children. And when we're saying diversion, we mean informal, out-of-court resolutions. We know there are still challenges, and of course the recent thematic from the Inspectorate, the joint thematic, sort of highlighted those inconsistencies, and there's still more work to do. And today's session really is an opportunity for us to come together as a group, sort of hear from CGI and their expertise on the joint NPCC and YGP guidance. And again, we've got attendees from both organisations today. It'll be a really busy one, so bear with us for any technical challenges. Really excited to have, and huge thanks goes out to, and particularly to operational colleagues, so Leicestershire and Wrexham colleagues for joining us and sharing their expertise. And we're going to start off today's session with a video from Catherine Roper, who's Chief Constable for Wiltshire Police, but also the National Police Chief Council's representative for Children and Young People's portfolio. So I'll just play that video, and then we'll do a quick round of intro to speakers, and we'll hand over to Claire to lead through today's session.
Of Wiltshire Police, and also the national lead for the Children and Young Persons portfolio for the National Police Chiefs Council. I'm so sorry that I cannot be with you today at this incredible virtual learning cafe, and I am delighted that I often work with the partners who are hosting this cafe for you today, because it's really important that we look across the partnership and actually work out how it is that we're going to be supporting children and young people. Now, I know that a lot of the discussions today will be looking at how we hold children and young people to account, which is really important, but how we do that by maximising our opportunities around diversion, out-of-court resolutions, and how we work with our children and young people to make sure that we're truly keeping them safe. Now, we know, unfortunately and sadly, that children and young persons can often be vulnerable to be preyed upon through child sexual exploitation, through criminal exploitation, and often can find themselves vulnerable in a way that they weren't expecting. We work in an incredibly fast-moving digital world, which means often we're getting constant contact from people that we might not know who it is. We might be encouraged to do something which we're not expecting, we don't know what to do with it. And so my job as the National Police Chief Council Lead for Children and Young Person is making sure that I can highlight how we can keep children and young people ever safer. The focus on diversion, that early intervention piece, making sure that we work really well with our partners to keep children and young people safe. And as I say, make sure that people understand their behaviours. If someone does do something that is criminal, if someone does do something that is thoughtless but might not be criminal, or generally isn't quite sure the appropriate actions to take in a particular scenario, policing and its partners have a responsibility to make sure that we work with our communities to help support them through that moment. But we do need to do it together, and we also need to understand what we are doing and how we're doing it to make sure that we are truly child-centred. So I really am sorry I'm missing this conversation today. From a national perspective, policing is looking ever more at how we can improve our diversionary activities. Last year, my national portfolio produced the latest Children and Young Persons strategy, and this year we launched the charter. And in the charter, which I'm hoping you will have access to today, but in the charter we talk very much about that youth voice, the trust of children and young people, and how we can support people into having a really strong and positive future. We talk in that charter about diversion. We talk in that charter about engagement and making your voices inform what it is that policing is doing day in, day out. So have a really great virtual learning cafe. Once again, I'm sorry I'm not there, but I will be looking forward to hearing all about it. And frankly, I'll be looking forward to learning from all of you ever more. Thank you very much indeed for inviting me to give this short message, and I look forward to speaking to you soon.
And that gives a really good segue over to Zoe, who's joined us from MPCC today. So Zoe, I just want you to have to say hello and a bit of an introduction.
Hello, everybody. So I am Zoe Purnell, and I am the coordinator for the portfolio. So I work under Catherine Roper. And yeah, so I work very closely with the YEF and Centre for Justice Innovation and the YJB, lots of agencies, and just really trying to get that child-centred approach across, and to make sure that we are working together with our partners for the best for the children.
Thanks, Zoe. And equally, we'll just hand over to Kate from the YJB to say hello as well.
Thanks, Nick. Yeah, good morning, everyone. Great to be here. Really important topic, and as Zoe said, work very closely together with the MPCC, obviously to share the guidance with people that sets out how this role should be delivered. And I think just to say that we continue to think that this role is critical to the success of youth justice partnerships, and that the importance of the partnership between the police and youth justice services really can't be overstated at all. So we really welcome this discussion today. Thank you, Nick.
Yes, Kate. Echo everything you said, Kate, and I'll hand over to Claire to sort of run through today's session. And yeah, just a big shout out and thanks to CGI for facilitating today's conversations.
Thanks, Nick. I'm just sharing my slides. Hopefully you can see those. Oh, it's gone a bit ahead of itself. Can everyone see those?
Yeah, it's come on.
Great, fantastic. Right, so my name is Claire Eady. I head up the criminal justice practice team at the Centre for Justice Innovation. So the Centre for Justice Innovation is a UK-based charity. We seek to put practitioners and evidence at the heart of justice reform, and we support practitioners in youth, criminal and family justice, and undertake research and influencing policymakers and officials. We do lots of things, but we are best known for our practice support work with youth justice services and police forces to implement and deliver youth diversion, and we've done this for sort of 10 years, and we do this by providing sort of free training and support, and we work very closely, like has been said, with the Youth Justice Board and the NPCC, and this Virtual Learning Café, which we are co-hosting, and our current practice support, which some of you on the call have been beneficiaries of or are working with us currently, is part of the Youth Justice Partnership, which is funded by the YEF. So today I'm going to provide a brief summary of the kind of NPCC and YJB like co-produced guidance, and obviously like you just met Kate, who was one of the lead authors on this report. So if you've got any questions, she can answer them. But I just wanted to talk a little bit about the guidance, because I don't think everyone is familiar with it in terms of our work with the Youth Justice Services and Police, and also about some of our insights we've seen about that role and how it works with the Youth Justice Services to improve outcomes for children, victims and their sort of communities. So just a quick, is my slides moving? Doesn't look like they are. They move for anyone else? They've not moved for me. How about now?
Yes, they've now moved.
Great.
Thanks.
Okay. So the guidance was published in 2023 by, like I said, the Youth Justice Board and the NPCC. So the purpose was to ensure there's clarity between police and youth justice services about that dedicated role of the police officer embedded in the youth justice service. And why does that matter? I think it was sort of key to have this new guidance because it reflects the evolving practice around children, child first, child-centred policing, and the sort of increasing complexity of children's needs. And by that, I mean, I don't think children have necessarily got more complex and their needs more complex. I just think as a system, we have better knowledge and understanding of children and why they may be involved in the justice system, and also what we can do to kind of prevent their involvement. So the role. So it's kind of a legal requirement to have this role. So every youth justice service must include at least one police officer per the Crime and Disorder Act, meaning police contribution is statutory. So hopefully everyone on the call knows that and has one. The Youth Justice Police Officer brings unique policing skills and powers to the Youth Justice Partnership for preventing and reducing reoffending and supporting children. This should be a serving police officer, not simply police staff, so they're able to fulfil the roles laid out. And again, just to stress, this isn't sort of an optional add-on, but a core embedded role that helps reduce the sort of them and us between police and youth justice, but also ensures that you can work together to protect children. So talk about where you sit, where you work. So the officer should ideally be based within the Youth Justice Service premises with access to police systems, while also maintaining those operational links with their home force. So it's kind of a bit of both. You don't want to be too in the Youth Justice Services, but also too separated from your police colleagues, because both those parts of the role are important. So what are the benefits of being sort of co-located? It builds trust with children, it supports information sharing, and it promotes the integration with the youth justice staff. But what we do recognise is there is local variation, particularly since the pandemic, and so not all youth justice officers are based in there in the local youth justice service office, but what is critical is a strong relationship and link with both agencies. What I will say, however, though, is in our work over the years, working with numerous areas and forces, is the relationship does tend to be better and the work more consistent and challenges dealt with more effectively when there is co-location. That might not be full-time co-location, that might not be a Monday to Friday, 9 to 5, but we would definitely strongly recommend that where possible, you have time where you're based regularly in that office so you can work with your youth justice colleagues. So what are the core tasks of the Youth Justice Police Officer? So I've kind of put them into sort of 5 areas, and they're kind of similarly split like this in the guidance, but this is obviously quite a high level sort of overview of what the Youth Justice Police Officers do, and you'll hear from actual Youth Justice Police Officers about all the work they do, and it can be obviously quite a lot of things. But just to sort of point out that they're not a case manager. Their role is to be supportive of case management, but they aren't replacing obviously the youth justice staff. And what I would ask is sort of everyone on the call to kind of reflect and look at those kind of 5 areas and think about what's kind of strongest in your current work, and are there any areas there that you think need strengthening. So I'm going to go through sort of each of the core tasks, and I'm going to start with diversion and spend a bit of time on this one because it's kind of the focus of today's BLC. So what is diversion? So I'm sure most of you on the call will be aware, but just very quickly, it's working with children who are linked to an offence and kind of responding to their needs outside of the formal criminal justice system. So it aims to avoid unnecessary criminalisation, reduce stigma, and support positive outcomes for children. It's those sort of more informal outcomes that you can get, like community resolutions, NFAs, and deferred prosecution, where you have it. So it sits within the broader prevention framework, so around early, proportionate, and child-centred responses. So what are the key role or tasks for the Youth Justice Police Officer within diversion? So it's bringing that police insight and intelligence, so providing up-to-date intelligence on the child, peer group, exploitation risk, and any wider sort of community factors, and they help to ensure the Youth Justice Service has a full picture before they can recommend a diversion outcome. And it acts as a bridge also from the Youth Justice Service and neighbourhood and response policing. It can also be a bridge between the your wider police colleagues also. They are crucial to joint decision making. They're a core member, key member of the out-of-court resolution panels, or your diversion panels, whatever you call them. And they work with the youth justice practitioners to determine the most suitable outcome for a child. And they ensure that decisions are lawful, consistent and defensible, and aligned with national direction. They also help to ensure appropriate and proportionate outcomes, so help the over intervention or net widening, provide a police perspective on risk, harm and public safety, and can help tailor outcomes to local context. So what's going on locally in terms of gang tensions or vulnerabilities or things like that. And you've also got them, they can support the intervention itself. So they may attend meetings with children and support understanding and credibility of the diversion scheme. That won't be appropriate for all children. For some, it can be a helpful addition, and it kind of reinforces the message that children are being offered an opportunity and they're avoiding sort of criminalisation. And also the police can work to ensure that any conditions or requirements or whatever it is that part of diversion are realistic and sort of achievable. And then finally, I think a core kind of role, which is something I've kind of added that isn't quite in the guidance, but is something that's quite key, is you as a youth justice police officer sharing the outcomes and good practice with your fellow officers, so that increases trust and confidence in your scheme. So the next one, we've got core task is formal disposals and court orders. So similarly, it's about the intelligence and information sharing, and it's working closely in a similar way with diversion around the youth cautions and youth conditional cautions. There's also obviously the participation in the risk management meetings like MAPA, and supporting resettlement for custody for those children. Other core tasks, and again, I could have done a slide or a couple of slides on each of these, but for time's sake, I've kept it kind of just as a summary. But again, more you can see a theme is the intelligence and information sharing. That's a really key part of the youth justice officer, police officer's role, and they act as a conduit between the youth justice service and the broader intelligence systems. They also are key in around ensuring victims are engaged, informed of outcomes, and are considered in decision making, and using restorative justice where appropriate. And then they also have the warranted powers. So the use of arrest is possible, but should be sort of carefully managed in the youth justice environment. I think that's a very rare occurrence, thankfully, but it is something that you need to consider with your partnerships about how that would be handled and how you manage the fact that police do have that authority and power, but how does that fit with the supportive and rehabilitative ethos of youth justice? So now moving on from the sort of core tasks onto sort of management, governance and partnership. So the youth justice officer remains employed by their home constabulary. They should be line managed by police, but they have a youth justice manager for sort of day-to-day oversight. The officer should not be routinely pulled away for other police duties, except for serious cases or training. This is something that we do hear, it does happen, that they are pulled away, and that can particularly cause issues. I'm sure it does with sort of other tasks, but around diversion, when the timeliness of decision making and how quickly you can work with a child is quite key. And if that officer is pulled away to other duties or is on leave and there's not a cover, it means that decisions can be delayed. And a week or 2 weeks is quite a long time in a child's life, and also in the life of a victim, for those decisions and outcomes to be made. So we would sort of strongly suggest that there's sort of you think through what that looks like should the police officer not be available. There should be strong senior level representation from police on the youth justice management boards, that's chief inspector and up, and there should be strategic and operational alignment around your goals around preventing reoffending and keeping children safe. And also there's a joint role in inspections. You would have seen that recently there was a joint inspection with HMIC, FRS and HMIP around this subject. And a key part of that inspection was looking at how the two areas work together. So all of those tasks and those roles and the management and the oversight should be underlined by the ethos of child first and the child-centred approach. So it's kind of bridging that police authority and power and the supportive, oh sorry, I've stayed on the same notes there. It's about working together to ensure, whilst there is bringing kind of enforcement power and decision making from the police, there is also embedded with the rehabilitative skills of the youth justice service, and together they embed those kind of child-centred values. So what are those values? So it's prioritising children's best interests, capacities and rights. It's focusing on children's strengths and to promote pro-social identity and desistance. It's encouraging meaningful engagement and wider social inclusion of children and carers, and using preemptive prevention, diversion and minimal intervention to avoid unnecessary unnecessary criminalisation. So these should be the things that kind of underpin your work across both agencies, both the Youth Justice Service and police. So what are some next steps, top tips, I guess, for people on the call? So for those who are looking, who are thinking about how their youth justice police officer role is working, here are some, I guess, high level things to think about with your role. Like, review your service level agreement or joint protocol. Is it aligned with this guidance? Where your police officer isn't co-located, could you work with your force and YDS to address this as a priority? Regularly auditing your intelligence and data sharing agreement and processes to check that you are receiving the right information at the right time and in a secure manner. That was something that came out of the recent inspection about how decisions were made about outcomes for children, and they weren't necessarily informed on the basis of all the information about that child. Map your strategic board membership. Is there senior leadership on it? But also, are they engaged? It's not enough just to sit in a meeting. Are they engaged with it? Is the role of your youth justice police officer embedded or linked with the work of the wider child-centred policing teams and leads in your force? Because you are a key part of that. And where you can, share your good practice, challenges and lessons learned with other youth justice police colleagues in other forces. I think people are good at sharing it necessarily with their own, but not necessarily with others. And hopefully that's what we can do today. So just to finish up, and then you'll get to hear from the much more interesting people who actually do this job. I just want to sort of summarise and just make really sort of clear that the role of the Youth Justice Police Officer is statutory, crucial and multifaceted. It bridges policing and youth justice to prevent offending and support children and protect the public. But its success demands on location, that co-location, access, collaboration and information sharing and governance. And underpinning everything should be a child-centred approach using diversion and minimal intervention wherever possible. And just to finish, by saying that effective strategic partnerships between police and youth justice services is non-negotiable if you want to achieve positive outcomes for children, victims and their communities. So please get in touch with me or Bami, who's on the call, if you'd like to hear more about our free support, and you can subscribe to our bulletin to learn more about upcoming events. But thank you everyone for your time, and I'll be around for questions later. So I will pass over now to Wrexham Youth Justice Service and North Wales Police to talk about how they work together.
There we go. I think, can everybody hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you, Kim.
Yeah, perfect. Sorry, some just technical issues getting.
It was me, not the technical issue. It's me. I apologise.
Okay, so good morning, everybody. My name's Kimberly. Kimberly Price. I'm Assistant Team Manager at Wrexham Youth Justice Service, and with me in the room I've got.
Yeah, morning, everybody. I'm Tom Milne. I'm the police officer seconded to Wrexham Youth Justice Service.
Yeah, so you're going to have to, I'll apologise, I think before we make a start, this is probably the biggest audience that Tom and I have presented to, so we're slightly nervous, but I'm hoping that some of the content of the slides you're going to find useful. So first of all, I'll sort of speak to you about the sort of infrastructure or the arrangements that we've got in place in respect of the police officer role within YGS in Wrexham. So it is a secondment, so Tom is here on a secondment basis. However, he is stationed here at the Youth Justice building, although the police stations local are quite local and in close proximity to our YGS building. So Claire spoke about that sort of co-location. He's frequently sort of dipping in and out of the police stations and keeping in contact with his policing colleagues. But I guess the benefit of having Tom here sort of Monday to Friday for predominantly, that just enables him to be sort of well integrated within the YGS staff team. He does have management oversight from both his police sergeant and also myself, and we do meet as a sort of a threesome regularly to sort of check in with Tom and I guess undertake sort of supervision, so to speak. So there is that regular sort of contact and communication. Tom is given access to both police training and any opportunities that may come with the sort of policing role and policing side of things, but also he is given opportunity, just like any of the member staff here at YGS, to engage in any training opportunities that come. So sort of child first training, ACEs, all of that sort of stuff. Tom is also given an opportunity to contribute to any sort of policy development, both locally and regionally. So if we're sort of reviewing internal processes or sort of regional policies, Tom is heavily involved in the sort of development of that and contributes, I would say, quite significantly.
Tom, apologies to check him. We're currently just seeing slide 1. And I know that you're making your way through, Kim, so it's got the read-only version at the moment. So just FYI, guys, that we've got slide 1 up at the moment.
Okay, sorry about that.
I think you're sharing the wrong screen. If you change it to another share screen, you might be able to pick up the right one.
I just know, Tom, Kim, how rich those slides are. Do you know what I mean? I know colleagues will really benefit from seeing some of the detail there, and I know we'll review at the end because there's been a couple of questions chat around whether we share slides. Obviously, with some of the slides being like this one from Wrexham being sort of operationally, we just want to make sure that they would everyone would be happy sort of sharing slides. But yeah, that's come up both, so I'll hand that to you.
We did forewarn you that we were rookies, really, so thank you for that, Nick. So again, there is strategic oversight from so we do have representation from CI at the management board, and any, I would say, sort of lower level themes that we may be picking up on, or issues that we're identifying in terms of timeliness of your fate, or higher frequent levels of criminalisation for LAC children, things like that. They're all issues that we may take to the management board to have those conversations and to address those areas of concern. Now I'm clicking and it's not.
Go on, try again.
There we go. And then that's it from me, really, in terms of infrastructure. So I'll hand over to Tom, who's got lots more to say about his role, but I'm sure I won't be able to help myself and muck in as we move through the slides.
That's fine. Thanks, guys. Yeah, so just a little bit about me before I start any further. So I'm in my unbelievably 14th year of my career with North Wales Police. Prior to that, I was PCSO with Dyfed Powys for 5 years. And that's ranged across response policing, obviously community-based policing with my PCSO role, and then I'm in my 7th year now doing the youth justice role. So got quite a wide range of sort of policing experience from that point of view. But just to go through some of our roles and responsibilities, the main one being is I'm the front door for the receipt and review of all referrals from North Wales police officers into the service. So any incidents that happen involving young people in the county of Wrexham, they come to my email inbox alongside the inbox of the youth justice manager and their admin staff, so that we can process them effectively. And then initially, my job is to screen those referrals in prep for sort of our the main event of our week, really, which is the multi-agency triage meeting that we call, and it's explained in sort of further slides coming up. But that is really the sort of epicenter of what we do here and how we manage every referral that comes through. Obviously, as Claire's already said, I share information and intelligence in order to promote safeguarding for young people and others. Any information or intelligence that comes through, I'll make sure that it's disseminated appropriately via intel reports, safeguarding referrals, etc. And yeah, the thing I love about this job more than anything is doing the prevention work, including sort of delivering sessions with young people. I do take pride in the fact that I do a lot of those sort of delivering sessions with young people, consequences, particularly attitudes to police. It's a strong theme that a lot of young people open to our service have got a mistrust and a dislike of the police, and it's really important to me that try and repair some of those relationships and get other officers involved as well in doing so. We do also, myself and a colleague, Guy Vine, we do assemblies across Wrexham County within schools that promote sort of safety in regards to knife crime and one killer punch. We see a lot of peer-on-peer violence both within school and in the community. So we deliver a presentation as and when appropriate to certain year groups within secondary schools in relation to those two topics. And then participate in diversionary activities, trying to help young people realise that there is more to life than some of the activities that they're getting involved in, and give them other options. I mean, I'm a fanatical golfer, so I do take young people to do activities like that. And I think it's really important, both for me to build that relationship with a young person, but also for the young person to see that I'm not just a police officer who lives and breathes the police. I'm actually a human being who's got hobbies, interests outside of work as well. And it's all aimed at strengthening those relationships. Another key role is to sit on the out of court resolution panel, which we hold every week, and that's just to assist in making recommendations for the outcomes of young people. And obviously I'm privy to all the evidence available for those incidents, and able to make a multi-agency decision at those panels to make the correct sort of, or hopefully the correct recommendation and decisions in terms of outcomes for young people, as Claire's already been through, trying to reduce sort of their introduction to the criminal justice system, really. And that's sort of key to everything that we do. And then what we do in Wrexham is we've got a good system in place where we issue those out of court resolutions, and obviously with the aim being sort of the swift administration of justice in order for the young person to get a benefit, and of course for our victims is to issue that resolution the same day where possible. So we have like what we call a clinic that runs in the afternoon after the panel, where young people are booked into slots, and we see them one after the other in order to get those resolutions issued in a timely manner. And
that's here at the YGS building, in sort of, child-friendly environment. Tom's not in uniform as such, but it's obviously, made clear to the young people that Tom is there because he's a police officer and is required to administer the disposal.
Yes. And then attend risk management meetings, MAPA when appropriate, just to sort of manage our higher risk level young people, and conduct risk assessments for home visits, just to make sure that there's no glaringly obvious sort of risks and concerns to staff who are attending to do home address checks to conduct assessments on young people, and advocating for victims as well, and liaising with our victim liaison officer Meg, who will go out and speak to victims and make sure that they are sort of at the forefront of our minds as well. So to go on to triage then, it's a really important sort of part of our week. So we ensure that all referrals from police, other partner agencies and the children's family are discussed in a sort of holistic manner. There's a huge sort of number of people that attend these meetings, but like I said earlier, it is our front door, and it's the people that are on that in that triage meeting ensure that all referrals and concerning behaviours are analysed, properly from all angles. So we've got police, education, children's services. We've got a team around the child, which is another avenue of children's services that provides sort of more specialised support. We've got missing CAMS, education. We've got a very, very wide ranging team who come in and discuss those referrals and see where's the most appropriate place for that referral to go to get the best results. And obviously we can signpost out if necessary. Obviously we want to aim to reduce first time entrance. We want to promote diversion, reduce criminalisation. It is a confidential meeting, and there's a confidential sort of statement at the start, confidentiality agreement, but just allows the sharing of information between agencies quickly, clearly, all minuted as well, so they're all evidence based as well. So and we use it to sort of monitor cases that have been returned to the police for further inquiries as well, so there's no drift. We're not losing cases to think that what's happening with so and so, for example. It's all documented there, so we're clear where we're at with each individual young person to make sure that they and the victim get the best service possible. And there's just a little, well, it's not, what is it?
No,
go on, you can talk.
I'm not sure if it's sort of very clear, because I appreciate the text may be quite small, but it's essentially a flow chart to just illustrate the process for triage. So it is exactly what Tom's described. All the referrals are coming in. We meet as a sort of a multi-agency. So once they've come in, Tom will screen them to ensure the suitability. So all of the victim details are there, and actually if that's missing, then it doesn't come into triage. Tom will go back to police to source that information. So once we've got appropriate referrals, those are then passed on to the triage, and triage is made up of all of those people that are listed in the right hand column. So police, education, youth workers, children's services, we've got yacht officers who are attending, and each of those people are expected to do some preparation prior to coming into triage. So that preparation will involve screening what information that those services may have about that child, and then when we come into the panel meeting, all of that information is presented so that we can make an informed decision about the best next steps really for that individual. And obviously all of the sort of pathways out of triage are again listed there. So it may be that we feel that there isn't a role for youth justice service, but actually youth workers will be able to support these young people or that young person in the community, and therefore we just give an action to the youth worker to take that forward. And then obviously we've got sort of street CRs that may be issued. So it may just be that the police are saying that they've issued a CR, and therefore we're now able to make that assessment that they're eligible for turnaround. And so we may allocate either onto the turnaround waiting list, which unfortunately we do have here, and or that they get allocated to somebody to sort of commence that TA intervention or assessment. Or it goes on to the out of court panel, and that's sort of an allocated sort of period of time for the case manager to complete the PAD assessment, and then it comes back to the out of court panel for a decision in respect of an outcome for the offence. So it's just an illustration really of the process that Tom described.
Yeah, so I'm just going to sort of go through some of the strengths that we feel that we have here as a service, and like we've just explained, we feel that triage process that we have is really strong. It's really it prevents anything being missed generally, and we do find that it creates a sort of very consistent service that we give. And obviously another strength that I've got a great relationship with the staff here at YJS, and I would say that I spend probably 80% of my time down here while still maintaining those links within police stations. I go to, like Kim's already said, there's 2 stations locally as our main sort of the eastern side of our force has its headquarters about 15 minutes from here. And our Wrexham City Police Station is what 5 minutes from here as well. So I do spend time in both, and making sure that I'm speaking with officers and that officers know that I'm available to speak to in person, but also provide that sort of service here as well. And the beauty of the building we have here is that it's absolutely bespoke for the service that we provide. So we've got an education room which also contains pool table, table tennis table. It's really child friendly. We've got a workshop where our young people can conduct and complete their reparation activities. If they're, for example, we have young people who build items to take to charity shops for them to sell, or we have where they will take things to the local sort of hospice and things like that. So we've got all of those facilities on site, and young people know that they can then come to our door, and it's easy for me then to maintain those relationships, because I'll hear that so-and-so is at the front desk, is in reception, and I can just get up from my chair, pop through and have that conversation with them. It doesn't have to be sort of so formal and arranged where they're coming to a police station or they're coming to a building that makes them feel uncomfortable. We like to think that here that they feel comfortable coming here.
And there's no agenda, no reason for Tom to go through other than to just say hi, how's your week been, what what have you been up to? So
Yeah.
it's purely sort of with the interest of the child.
Yeah, and whilst we're trying to sort of, obviously we don't want to actively encourage young people to come to youth justice, because obviously we'd prefer it if they weren't open to us, because it would mean that they weren't sort of on the realms of coming into the criminal justice system. When they are here, we want to make sure that it's a safe place for them to come, so that we can get the best out of them and the best result for them. I put together a couple of years ago now, maybe 3 years ago, I put together a knife crime resource, which we use in the assemblies that I mentioned. And I've spoken to Claire and to Nick, and potentially we'll be able to share that at the end. But it's a video which sort of is quite hard hitting, shows some of the injuries involved in knife crime, how many lives are lost to knife crime, and some of the things for young people to consider in terms of the sentences that can be handed out for knife crime, and some of the things that they'd miss out on, and just generally almost like a plea to young people to consider their options when it comes to carrying knives, and just to give them something to think about before they make that decision to unfortunately carry a weapon. And yeah, I think that another strength is to review those, and our referrals into the service are called YEF 8s. So it's basically, that's just a referral form for our service, and it's to quality assure them and make sure that victim information is present. And because what we wouldn't want to do is to become so child focused that we're forgetting on providing a service to the victim as well. I would say areas for development at the moment, what we've got going on at the moment, we've currently got we're trialing a YJS PCSO. So it was recognised within Wrexham City that there was a PCSO in particular who was taking a really good interest in working with young people, and we created an opportunity for her to come and work in the YJS building as a sort of hybrid role. So because of the responsibilities of a PCSO being slightly sort of a bit more fluid than what my role is in terms of being able to get out on the street, and we felt it was really good that she's called Ellie, so Ellie would be able to go out and engage with the young people on the street and report back to us as actually what's happening, because what you read on a referral can be slightly different to what's actually happening out on the street. So to have that level of detail and to have that report from her is really, really helpful, and is been real positive. But we're just trying to develop that further. And I think child-centred policing is obviously high on the agenda for police forces at the moment, but I think it's something that we need to continue to promote, and to develop those frontline officers' understanding about my role and what I do. And
youth justice as a whole, what youth justice can offer.
Yeah, and I think helps with that is that I've also started, I was doing it last night, in fact, I was out on the front line doing work at the Wrexham football game, and engaging with young people who attend the football match and potentially cause problems at the football match, and engaging with those sort of in their environment, if you like, and making sure that they understand that, yes, I work as a police officer within YJS, but for them to see me in full uniform and engaging with them in the same way that I engage with them at YJS, I think is really important. Again, just bringing that human approach to it for them to see that, yes, I work at Youth Justice, but I also am a police officer, and for them to find that balance, really. And
if I can, sorry, just interject, I think for me as well, it's an opportunity for Tom to model, how to interact with some young people who, and I appreciate that we're often, in a very fortunate position that we really understand why some of the behaviours of young people are occurring, because we've got full comprehensive assessments that detail, some of their early childhood experiences that may be causing the reason for the behaviour. So I think it's you sort of not advocating for the young people, but sort of sharing that knowledge, with your policing colleagues, so that they can be informed about maybe what that child's got to go home to, and why maybe some of those behaviours are taking place.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, I've been on sort of the other end of it, where I've been a response officer and I've been dealing with young people who you don't get the full picture of when you're dealing with them, and perhaps your approach is slightly different, and it's just sort of highlighting that and giving officers another sort of option as to how to deal. I don't, I'm not professing to be the oracle of how to communicate with people, but I think my experience in the role does help with that. And we're currently looking at child-friendly custody suites as well, and that's something that's ongoing between my supervisors and senior management team, is to try and embed that within custody. I do know that North Wales Police Custody generally are very, very good with young people, but we're just trying to sort of evolve that. And I know there are certain forces across the country who have really sort of really improved how child-friendly custody suites are, because obviously we don't want children in custody, but if they do have to go, we want to make it as appropriate for them as we can. And the challenge is, as everyone's busy, everyone's understaffed and everything else. But, as Claire said, the statutory guidance would say that we have to have one police officer within youth justice, and that is all we have in Wrexham. I would love to have a colleague with me, because we'd be able to provide, an even better service than we already do. And the introduction of Ellie as our YDS PCSO has sort of assisted with that slightly. But yeah, there is one police officer to 8 YDS case managers. So quite often there's a bit of a queue coming up to my desk for case managers to be asking me for information and stuff like that. And a lot of information requests and requests for assistance do come through. But that's, that is part of the role, and thoroughly enjoy it. So
I put a slide in for questions, but I am mindful that there is a Q&A allocated time slot for Q&A at the end. So probably just put a pause on any questions that anybody may have, and we can sort of revisit that towards the end.
Yeah, both Claire and I keen to jump in, probably both to express our thanks both. And I think definitely pick up QAs at the end. And I think, Tomkin, what really struck me in today's presentation, and when I met you in Wales a couple of months ago, was just the synergy between you both and the understanding between you both. And Tom, for yourself, well, there's always going to be pressure, particularly from a police perspective, to talk to some of the challenges of knife crime. For me, it was a mentorship and being that trusted adult. I know you guys haven't mentioned it, but when we look at your deferred prosecution scheme, we were seeing that actually all children were engaging with that, and that's a reflection on the relationship building that you guys are doing locally. Claire, over to you, and segue to Leicestershire. Thanks both.
Yeah, it was just, thank you so much, both of you. That was absolutely brilliant. And we'll just pass over now to Leicestershire Police and Leicestershire Youth Justice Service to talk about their work, and then we'll have questions. I'm sure you'll have lots of questions, Tom and Kimberly, but thank you so much.
Good morning, everybody. My name is PC Ben Broad. I'm one of the seconded police officers here in Leicestershire, and my colleague is Andy. You're still on mute, my friend.
You can tell I don't do these often, can't you? Good morning, everybody. Andy Collins. I'm a police officer seconded to the County Council for Leicestershire.
Good morning, everyone. My name's Carly Turner. I'm the head of Youth Justice for Leicestershire and Rutland. I'm just going to say a few strategic sentences really about the context that we're operating in across Leicestershire, and then I'm going to hand over to my amazing colleagues Andy and Ben, who are going to talk operationally about what that looks like. We have a dynamic in Leicestershire which isn't a very straightforward one, in the fact that we have one police force that covers 3 local authorities and 2 youth justice services. So it's quite a complex situation, and we're very fortunate within those 2 youth justice services to have access to 4 youth justice police officers. So I'm not going to go into the details of that, because I know that Andy and Ben are going to cover it. But I think in terms of context, for me, the real success in how we all work together is about that strategic commitment. So within Leicestershire Police, we have an absolute commitment around prevention being the best way to support children, adults, and to move through to them having better lives and creating less victims. To that end, Leicestershire Police have set up a prevention directorate, of which our youth justice police officers and their line management sit within, and which us as 2 youth justice services are able to work really well together to make that far easier. We have one chief inspector who sits across both youth justice and boards, which are the statutory boards that we need to have within youth justice services, and that really helps that ease of flow between all of us. And I think what Andy and Ben will describe is that strong collaborative working that happens operationally across those boundaries of different local authorities. And so I'm going to hand over to them.
Thank you very much. If my slides will move over, bear with me, folks. There we go. So basically, who is in with our youth justice services? Callie's really highlighted already. We have a myriad of partners that we work with, from social care, obviously, of the police officers themselves, and within that, our role also interchanges with those police officers, as in we're sort of like a bit of a gatekeeper role. It's sometimes we're teachers, because we go into show our new officers what we're all about, and then we revisit that in year 2 to reinforce those messages, and we act very much as like an open door kind of policy, where those officers can come to us and ask us questions about our really complex young people that we have, and we can give them our experience and our knowledge and access to information, or our caseworkers, so that they can all act together, and we act as that conduit for those young people. Safeguarding Hub, obviously we're here today, actually in the Safeguarding Hub, both myself and Andy, we've based ourselves here today because we work very closely with that team as well. Andy, and we'll go a little bit more into that when we start talking about things like buddy tag and things like that. Turning Point, which we've highlighted on there, which is our drugs proposal, which is basically a really excellent implementation of, if, say, for example, our young person is found with cannabis, all of those drug offences must come through us, go, and we refer them to Turning Point, which will then, if it's like a possession job, will end up with a community resolution, but also at the same time some workspace actually done with the Turning Point people, where they will discuss obviously their drug usage and how to keep them safe, and using that public health kind of model with that one. City Council exclusive services, we've got some great programs that we can tap into for the young people when we have offences, which is very much that child-centred first kind of approach, where we try and use that diversionary action and take them away from criminality, and show them obviously what their actions and how those actions have some consequences. Education is key, because we need to understand very early on what is happening with our young people. Is this a reaction because of exclusion from schools? How can we support with that as well? Which as police officers, when I think I know for myself, not speak probably for Andy as well, it was always a bit of a strange one when we first came to this. It's like, how can that make a difference? But it's a real collation. If we can get our young people engaged in education and into some form of future outcome, an horizon that they can aim for, absolutely wonderful thing. It can be so impactful. In CAMS, obviously, a lot of really good work that we do with that particular group. ACES projects, for example, adverse childhood experiences, and we have some amazing workers there. So really, happy to fly the flag for those people. Moving on to the next slide now, Andy.
So yeah, Leicestershire Police and Leicestershire Councils, both of them have a real appetite for change, and we are striving to improve continuously. Part of that is that we have a massive commitment to prevention, and to reflect this, Leicestershire Police's commitment to that prevention, the Prevention Directorate was established in June 24, providing basically strategic leadership and expertise in relation to preventing crime, harm, and reducing demand on those frontline services, because we know that they are so stretched at the moment. It also directly delivers prevention, early intervention, diversion, and offender management activity across its 4 departments. So those 4 departments to fall within that directorate are Prevention and Problem Solving Hub, Crime Prevention and Community Safety, Diversion and Youth Justice, for which myself and Ben are members of, and Offender Management. All of these teams work really closely and collaboratively with a range of partners to promote their safeguarding.
Yes, and with that, what we're looking to do is implement as a public health approach to policing. And what we're really looking to do is to try and dig down as to what is the root cause of this criminality. For example, we're looking not to punitively punish, we're looking to try and address that. We're looking to try and look at ways of curing the triggers, of pick that thread of why these things are occurring. We don't forget about our victims also within that. We do reflect very often, especially when it comes up to the panel processes and things like that. The victim's voice is very strong and it has to be heard, and rightly so. But what we are looking to do is to stop that continuous loop of reoccurring offences, because nobody wants that. What we want to try and do is divert our young people away from criminality, and if we can, heal what is actually causing them to do that. They created the diversion and the Youth Justice Department. The department brings together basically all our out of court activity currently. The Youth Justice system, the substance misuse team, and also our school engagement team, as well as our child-centred policing sort of like promotion as well with this. We're really trying to not just for our young people, our service users, but we're also looking to, as I've sort of indicated previously, we're looking to educate our police officers as well and make them fully aware, because they're going to be our first points of contact with our young people, possibly out there on the streets, and sometimes very heightened situations. And we want to make sure that that dynamic situation doesn't take over our police officers' reaction to those young people. Andy.
So we'll talk about modernisation of the Justice Police's role in a moment. That's going to be covered majority on the next slide. But just wanted to kind of have the overarching principle of this, that everything we're talking about has a clear supervisory structure. We have a dedicated inspector and sergeant and a chief inspector who work within our department to review every case with us. They will actively make themselves available for any kind of disposals that we are looking at and considering. And they are really keen to promote that kind of strong improvement culture, which has given us the freedom to modernise the role of the Youth Justice PC, which we're going to go on to the next slide, please, man. So in order to understand this, historically, Leicestershire Police have had 4 seconded police officers to the Youth Justice Police Officer role. That is a massive investment on behalf of Leicestershire Police. You're talking over £200,000 worth of investment in staff alone. And those officers were historically tasked with doing things like custody checks, information sharing with partner agencies, home visits. They were members of the outer court panel, and the issue cautions and community resolutions, the work that we've previously discussed here. Leicestershire Police really wanted to kind of diverse and improve that. So if we can go to the next slide for us, Ben.
Yeah, bear with. There we go.
So we wanted to change the dynamic of how we shared our intelligence, and we wanted to increase it, that information was being shared freely both ways. In light of that, Carly, you heard from earlier, and our inspector have rewritten the information sharing agreement, basically opening up the free exchange of information across all parties, with a overriding safeguarding principle in relation to that. Basically, it all falls under the child first approach, that we're here not to criminalise all the time, but to understand the child, understand their offending, and get to the bottom of it in order to address that properly. Slide, please, mate. So our new approach to our partnership working is that we retained the 4 seconded police officers that were working with both councils in Leicestershire, Leicester and Rutland. 2 of those officers remained in the traditional role. It's a government mandated role that we have to fill, as has previously been discussed, and they created the core elements of the kind of work that we're doing. What we then did was we took the other 2 youth justice officers and created an intelligence focused role. And that role was basically to allow the free flow of information between the council and the police in order to maximise those safeguarding opportunities. So that created a single point of contact for both the council and the police, and a consolidated knowledge base, an effective filter for the intelligence exchange between both groups. That basically was created off the back of a feedback that we got from police and from the council that they wanted kind of one network to go through. So a dedicated inbox was created in relation to that, where all parties have access to it. Simple fill out of one data protection form, and we will share pretty much everything that we've got across all parties in order to promote that safeguarding. The role of intelligence focused kind of youth justice officer has also given us the opportunity to seek further and additional funding, which has allowed us to obtain some buddy tags, which are GPS monitored tags. They are worn on a voluntary basis by our young people, but they really promote the opportunities for them to kind of break out of that cycle of offending. And we've seen real kind of good feedback with it with our young people that are involved in county lines, because it effectively makes them toxic to the county lines, that they can't be used any longer by those groups that are seeking to exploit them, and they can seek a quick and efficient way to get out of that cycle of offending. That's something that we hope to improve on and encourage in the coming months. We currently have 9 of those tags that are regularly out and deployed, and we're going to be driving that forward, hopefully to see some increased numbers to look at other offending as well, and hopefully break some cycles of offending patterns.
So within the Youth Justice Focus role, we're obviously looking to create that positive links within the wider sort of we call it the wider police family, because as Andy's alluded to, you know, what we're looking to do is work with our partner agencies as a holistic sort of thing. We all want the greater good. We all want the same sort of things, and we're also looking to work within the police force, because what we were tending to find is we were a little bit siloed. So what we were looking to actually do is, and we've actively gone to various departments within the police force, and we sort of introduced ourselves as in a relaunch, for want of a better way of phrasing it. I think is probably the best way of describing it, Andy. And we have gone to what we thought were the very key sort of components. So things like CCE, for example, Artemis. We're really looking to look at those kind of really building those links with those departments, so there is more interchangeable information coming between us, and support also for the caseworkers as well that we work with and the council. So we're really trying to build a strong link between those between those departments, and also hand that link also in hand with our council colleagues as well, so that we have got that interchangeable aspect to where we're there as well as advisory, for want of a better way of putting it, but also that we are there to sort of almost hand over and go, there you go, have a communication, because that information is directly then given to all parties involved. Andy, anything else you would add with that?
I think for us it's the linking with those teams and giving them that opportunity to create bonds with the council staff that are working with these young people directly, open those lines of communication to really facilitate that movement of information between both teams. We have a really good working relationship with our council workers that are going out meeting these young people. They will regularly seek that kind of feedback, and when they can build those relationships with the investigating officers, it just allows a smoother flow of information. It can help the young person understand the investigation, where it's at its current point, and understand obviously bail conditions and anything else that might be affecting them going forward. Just to reflect on that, I know that some people won't know. So Artemis is basically our team within Leicestershire that covers offending against children. So particularly around online offences, images and things like that.
Next slide, Andy. So how do we get our young people in? Basically, what we're looking to do is we have a form called an F7, which is when we've had the offence actually brought to us as a police force, and we have done the investigation and everything like that. Twofold, basically, if we have a young person is interviewed, no admission, and then obviously progressive, to that sergeant of that particular front-facing officer, and then possibly the CPS. Files submitted, and then obviously have to court. However, what we are finding is when we go to court, We have a really, again, strong bond with our youth courts, and at that point of submission of a guilty plea, we're getting a return back to us for diversion. And currently we're experiencing about 25% return from the CPS due to this early plea sort of like model what we're looking at. Because what we're not looking to do is create an escalation mechanism. We're looking to try and denature the pre-programmed thing that young person might have got into the head that they must always go no comment, say in an interview or something like that, and therefore why should they, or they've had maybe poor legal advice, why should they then be punished by going through the court? Basically that then decision would then be diverted back into our our out of court system. So if we've then at that point we've got a full admission, out of court suitability, obviously due to the offence and the gravity score. Sergeant approves obviously that from that area, or if it's a diversion, we do that for them on their behalf because we don't want to put more pressure on our front line. We take that on board as youth seconded officers. And then the F7 goes forward then to the Youth Justice Board, and then we review that. The process ensures that we're looking at this proportionately and appropriately as well. Once we've got that admission, we're not looking to escalate that young person unnecessarily at all. So hence that's what the actions are, what we're doing. I'm going to just quickly go on to the next one. So at panel, our options are pretty much as set on the right hand side of that particular slide, but within the panel itself, and this is the real key aspect for our out-of-court panel, we've got I'll describe it as a roundtable debating system. It's really, really good because we're coming at it from the child first approach. We are looking at not only just the young person that's been brought before the panel, but also the victim as well. So we will go out there and we will reach out and we will get the victim's voice where they wish to give you that information. We will really reflect on that in that panel as well. We will reflect via our partner agencies, all the sharing of that information on the makeup of that young person. We've got a person here in front of us and there are possibly numerous other triggers in there that was brought them to that point of criminality. So we need to understand that so we can address it and come up with the right outcome, which is all our options on that right hand side there. We debate that, we reflect on the impact that their offences had as well, and then we come to that common ground. Obviously, no further action. It is a very rare one. It has happened, but very rare. We have the community resolutions, the outcome 22, deferred caution, which is a lovely, a beautiful model, where we've also got the deferred prosecution as well. And that is that scale moment where we've got the opportunity for that young person to address what they've done by a course of actions. And if they buy into that process and learn from it, and we can document that, really build on that, that is, a really powerful thing. And again, that early intervention, that diversion away really follows that kind of model. Youth caution and youth conditional caution as well with that. Excuse me. A very similar sort of model, I would say, probably from a lot of different forces. However, like I say, for us, we really are very lucky in our out-of-court panel with the partnerships and the bonds we have within those partnerships. We really are very lucky that, we sort of have that trust between us all to sort of debate that openly and fairly, which I think is key. And finally, you'll all be glad to know, the out-of-court resolution panel, what we're looking to do is for that sharing to be improved with that information, as we've just sort of discussed on there. We're looking for the decisions to be more fully informed. We really want to be able to address, rather than just going on this continuous cycle of, just having that young person back in time again. There's no point. We need to understand what is going on. And via that, we hope to get the better outcomes and therefore either lessen the impact of their actions on, say, the community or themselves, or stop it completely is the overall goal. And that's it from me. Andy, anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, just to go back to your previous slide, Ben, in relation to the out-of-court panel, what wasn't discussed was that we work from the child gravity matrix. Obviously, that's a national document that's published, and every youth justice agency will work to that. We use that as the basis of our conversation. It sets the guidelines and the precedents as to where we are sitting on this scale. We then have aggravating and mitigating factors that we will openly discuss within the meeting to move that up and down the scale, and thus choosing the appropriate outcome for the young person. We obviously take into account their ACEs, any previous trauma that has been brought about that's highlighted within the meeting by the services that were there. So it really is about understanding that child fully, coming to a balanced conclusion, and actually choosing the right outcome for both the victim and the young person that we have in question.
That's very, very, very key. And really the whole process that's leading up into that, and we're very lucky in the sense of, if I can just highlight this aspect here, which is obviously the support available from our sergeant and our inspector and head of services as well. We have escalation, you know, when we have somebody come into our point of entry, we have escalational mechanisms where we can seek greater advice from our supervisories on that person or on that case, and to see where we're going to go. And I think that, again, that is that team working that's really key for us all. And I really wanted just to highlight that, because that kind of oversight, collaboration, and the movement where we're, you know, progressively looking to go forward is key to what we're doing here in Leicestershire. I'll stop sharing now.
I think that's everything from the both of us. Carly, did you have anything else you wanted to add?
I guess just my reflection is about the strength of relationships, isn't it? I'm thinking operationally, there's times when I've rang you both up and we need some kind of here and now information, and that just the ability to be able to do that in this relationship. I'm thinking about a time as well, Ben, when I rang you up and we actually had a girl in custody, and we were able to really work well together with the custody sergeants for a really great outcome there, where you were in the police station and actually could go and see the girl and see what was going on. And it's just that the incredible power of relationships, isn't it, that I think is really clear across all of our structures. So at chief inspector level, chief constable level, and all the way down, that strength's there. And when we were talking about, I know a lot of other police areas and youth justice services are really struggling, for example, with deferred prosecutions and deferred cautions. And actually, you know, the strength of our relationship enables us to have for the CPS, for example, to have real confidence in what we're delivering, and that regular catch up with them to make that happen. So I think it's the core of everything that we've achieved, but also operationally the ability to just pick up a phone. And probably the worst part of it all is now we can Teams each other as well, and that accessibility. I can see them laughing because I quite often Teams them with requests, you know, but it is that ability to be able to do that, you know, as a head of service, to be able, you know, to reach out and have those great relationships. I feel really privileged to have that. But yeah, that's my closing comment, really, in reflection.
So me and Nick are like, who goes?
Yeah, exactly that.
Thank you, Andy, Ben and Carly. That was brilliant. Thank you so much. And I feel like it was a really good sort of round of those presentations that really bring the role to life, and how you work together, and the challenges, but also the huge success that you can have working as a team to support the children. So yeah, thank you so much for giving up your time. And what, like, I can't believe we've had so many people come. This is obviously a very popular subject, so thank you all. So now we've got sort of about 12 minutes or so for like questions and things. So if you've got questions for myself, Nick, the team at Wrexham, the team at Leicestershire, and also Kate Langley at the YJB, and God, I've gone blank.
Zoe
and Zoe at the NPCC, that would be brilliant. So yeah, put them in the chat, or if you want to kind of raise your hand and let us know who you are and who your question is for. We've got Lucy.
Just as colleagues put up hand, Claire, I'll let you deal with the sort of questions coming up via hand, and I'll pick some up in the chat. Just give Yanina a couple of moments while we just give you the permissions to speak and so forth.
Yes,
but
of course.
Claire, back over to you. I think Lucy's ready to ask questions.
Yeah, Lucy, I think you should be able to.
Hi,
Yeah,
sorry, I jumped the gun a little bit there. I did pop something in the chat. I'm just really curious from a victim's perspective with regards to these deferred options in Leicestershire. It's not something that we have here in Dorset, and I'm just really curious how that works in terms of those conversations with victims.
Yeah, I'm happy to. That's not a problem. So off the back of our panel, the victims are spoken to directly we have a victim care team within the council that will go back to them and feed them the options as to why this has happened, explain the reasons around it and the approach. A lot of our victims find that although they sometimes initially disagree with it because they almost feel that they're being let off and given a second chance, once the kind of method is fully explained to them and they understand that they're going to be given a period of 12 weeks of kind of intensive learning support lessons that are implemented off the back of that to understand their offending and why this has happened. And it's not just something that goes away, that means the youth caution has just vanished. It means that they have to actively engage for that period of 12 weeks. So for us, that intensive kind of work is a real selling point for it and a good way of promoting it to the victims that, you know what, we are doing something about this. We're actively kind of acting on your behalf to address this from happening again. And it's also really explained to them if they don't engage with it as a young person and they choose to not follow the outcome 22, that it is deferred back to the panel and they are issued with the traditional kind of youth cautions or youth conditional cautions, or even referred back to court in some circumstances. So there is a lot of work to do around it. It needs to be managed very carefully, but once it's explained and kind of the process has gone through, we found it's really successful.
Yeah. Can I just add on the back of that as well, in Youth Justice Service, our victim restorative approach is work and makes contact with all victims that go through the panel process, and then the deferral is decided kind of as part of that. So we've already got that engagement with victims, that the feedback that we've had is about they feel better, empowered about understanding what the process is and how that happens. And I think that's then where that kind of dynamic is about victims being kind of able to see things from a child's perspective and wanting the best for them. But there's a lot of work that goes on with victims as part of that process, and feedback as well, closing the loop.
Yeah, thanks, Carly. And just to say as well, we've done a virtual learning cafe on Outcome 22, so that recording is available. And there's some really good presentations in there from areas that do it and talk about how they involve victims effectively in that. And also at the centre, we do a lot of work around that particular subject. So if you are interested in learning more, please get in touch. Thanks, Nick. Who have we got next?
I think let's go to Jonathan and then we'll pick up some in the chat if that's right, Claire.
Yeah, hi everyone. Thanks, Nick, for allowing me to comment. I chair the YEF's Evaluation and Grants Committee. Very, very interesting session. Thank you. And I was particularly struck, how interagency teamwork and trust, develops in a healthy partnership, especially when there's in-person meeting. It's so true, and it's a power for good that is often lost when we think about data and experiments and things to find out what works, which is also important. But I'd like to just ask how referrals from the NHS and the schools fit into these partnerships, because obviously a lot of violence and abuse only comes to light in schools and, say, in hospital A&E.
Shall I take that from a local authority perspective? Yeah, I guess so. Thanks for your question, Jonathan. Those referrals would ordinarily come through our front door services in children's social care. And I think that's about the relationship we have there to make sure that that information about that child gets internally into the right place. Within our youth justice service, and I can't comment across all services, but we do have access to our social care system, and so we can bring all of that information and live information into our panel process as well, so we can see a full account of contact that children have had. Also, as part of our internal processes around the panel is that we have a care navigation service as well, so they will interrogate the system one that our health services use and give us all of that information. So a wealth of partnership information. We then undertake on every child that goes through the panel the Youth Justice Board approved assessment. So we call it the PDAT. I know other people call it something different, but I like to think that we've got as much robustness about information from that partnership that then goes into our panel decision. That's how we would do it within our local authority.
What about referrals? Referrals of cases you don't otherwise know about from schools and the NHS?
It's the same process for us. So we use a single referral form called a multi-agency referral form, and then that's triaged to see what the best outcome is for children. But it's triaged through a safeguarding lens as well. So initially those children will be looked at around child protection, and then we have internal mechanisms within that as well. So we've tried to make it easier for schools to not have lots of different avenues to refer and to do lots of referral forms in, and so we've got a single referral form across the whole of Leicestershire within the 3 authorities. It's the same form, and dependent on the postcode of the address of the child they're referring, it pings off to the relevant local authority.
Thanks, Carly.
Thank you.
Really robustly answered. And yeah, thanks for the question, Jonathan. Just being mindful that we've got 5 minutes, I'm just going to reflect some of the questions in the chat. So probably sort of two recurrent themes. One was a question for Leicestershire just around no comment interviews, which I know Worth Me just sort of highlighted that currently Youth Endowment Fund are doing some collaborative work with Leicester and Leicestershire for the whole area model, so kind of no doubt Leicestershire colleagues we can touch upon that, and then probably picking up across Wrexham and Leicestershire sort of how areas manage sort of intel requests. So perhaps just starting off with the specific question was effectively how a no comment interview is accepted onto OC22 pathways, and then specifically on process for intel sharing. So, Ben, I don't know if you're best placed, Carl, or Andy on that one.
Yeah, I can come in there. So, at the minute, it's currently a real big work in progress in relation to no comment interviews, because we're aware of obviously the fact that people can be given really bad advice. There is a culture of providing no comment interviews within the custody environment that children often see through social media or whatever it may be, and that's the kind of go-to for everybody. And that may not be the best option for them whilst they're in custody. We are very much trying to work on that within Leicestershire to be able to facilitate no comment interviews through our out of court panel. But as I said, it is a work in progress, and we're just trying to clarify that final ticking off point prior to running that on a full-time basis. Hopefully it should be up and running early next year, I would imagine.
Sorry, Nick, we also have some safeguards in the court space as well with our CPS colleagues. So looking at those that ordinarily would be eligible that we can divert when those children get to court. We wouldn't want them to get to court, but we do have a space in there where we can, through our youth justice court officers, have really good conversations with defence solicitors to help them understand what the benefits are. And we do have a number of children that are in court that then get deferred because of the strength of the conversation in the court as well. Well, it's outside of the court and then it gets dealt with in court.
Just with that, Nick, as well, that leads on to Catherine's questions in the text. We don't re-interview if there's an admission at court. If the solicitor's present with the young person and they sign an admission at court, we will take it straight to panel and hear it, no questions asked from that point onwards.
In North Wales Police, we've been looking to sort of go direct to the solicitor firms and speak to them and just explain the process a bit better, so that maybe they can give appropriate advice there and then in custody. And that's something that we're working on at the moment, to really meet it at source and try and get that advice to be, to hopefully, take responsibility for the offence so they get a better outcome.
And then Tom, just sticking with you on the Intel question, I think Claire probably just taking the last one from answering.
Is that the question from Lydia on the chat?
Yeah, I think there were a couple just asking around how was that done? Was that done through a sort of formal pro forma or not?
Yeah, so we have I get emails from our YGF staff in relation to Intel and information that they're requesting. I think every time there's a referral made for a young person that I'm confident is going to be going to out of court disposal panel after the triage, I complete what's called a front sheet. So it's basically a a summary of that young person, what offences they've committed previously, or any child protection concerns that might need to be looked at with, because like Carly was saying, our staff here have access to social services information as well, so they can do relevant checks with them in relation to any sort of domestic incidents or safeguarding issues that are ongoing, and just looking at the intel picture as well surrounding that young person and any previous disposals that they may or may not have had. So all of that information would get shared for any person that I feel is likely to be coming through the out of court disposal process, and then thereafter, if there's anybody open on turnaround or somebody who comes back through out of court via the courts or something like that, I will complete those front sheets retrospectively. But in terms of timescales, it's just as soon as possible, really.
Thanks, Tom. We've got sort of Anthony's question, I think he's popped in the chat now. We are at sort of end of time, so he talks about does anyone work, I know we've obviously focused on diversion a lot today, but does anyone work with children on court orders? And yeah, so I think there is probably a lot that Leicestershire and North Wales could actually talk to you about that. So perhaps we can just sort of use this as an opportunity for people to share details and have networks and have those follow-up questions outside of today. But I will hand over to Nick now to close, because we are at 12:30.
Yeah, thanks, Claire. Thanks for the timekeeping as well, Claire, throughout today's session. Really appreciate it. Just to express huge thanks, really. It's so rich to hear from sort of Wrexham, Leicestershire, but also the context from Kate and sort of MPCC and Claire's really robust overview of the national guidance. So just a huge thank you to colleagues. I know we've run out of time, but clearly there's an appetite for more of these conversations. So just huge thanks. Kate, thanks for picking up the convo around voluntary tags within the chat. So for colleagues asking that questions, please refer to the chat. And otherwise, love to see so many familiar faces. Genuine thanks to all of you giving up time to attend today, and like I said, main thanks to those operational services that have joined and presented today, and you did a stellar job, so just thank you, and look forward to catching everyone soon.
Bye.
Thanks very much. Thank you.
Bye.